Hello and welcome to the BIS talks on food safety management system as provided in ISO 22000. Food is an integral part of our existence, our daily life, and needless to say, we cannot afford to be slack about maintaining food safety at every stage of the supply chain, from harvest to consumption. But exactly what is food safety, and is there a way to manage it? ISO 22000, the global standard for food safety management system, addresses these questions and provides answers that are of value to every organization that deals with food products. The BIS adopted this international standard as ISO 22000-2018 to promote the culture of food safety in food businesses in the country. I know you are now curious to know what this standard is all about. Let us first start with the definition of food safety as provided in the standard. Food safety is an assurance that food will not cause an adverse health effect for the consumer when it is prepared and/or consumed in accordance with its intended use. In other words, food safety is related to the control or prevention of foodborne hazards in food. Isn't it evident from the definition that it is also important to understand the food safety hazards before we proceed further? A food safety hazard refers to any agent which has the potential to cause adverse health consequences for consumers, and it may be biological, chemical, physical, or allergenic. Important biological hazards include bacteria, molds, viruses, and parasites. Examples of chemical hazards are mycotoxins like aflatoxins in groundnuts, pesticide residues, heavy metals like arsenic, lead, etc. Physical materials or hazards are like insects, hair, metal fragments, pieces of plastic, wood chips, and glass. The standard notes that as these hazards can occur at any stage of the food chain, from the farm to factory to fork, adequate control throughout the food chain is absolutely essential.
As is the case with most of the management system standards, ISO 22000-2018 is also based on the process approach and follows the principles of plan, do, check and act. In short, we call it PDA cycle and risk-based thinking.
Let us now go through the requirements of the standard to understand how these principles are to be implemented.
The first and foremost requirement of the standard is to determine the boundaries and applicability of the FSMS in the organization. In this regard, two critical exercises are required to be undertaken. First, identification of the needs and expectations of the stakeholders. Second, the internal and external factors that may have an impact on the food safety. In simple terms, the organization now knows the scope of the work at hand. The next obvious question is, what could be the internal and external factors which can affect the food safety management system of any organization? These factors will obviously vary from one organization to another, but for the sake of understanding, we can name a few examples. Like examples of internal factors are quality and adequacy of infrastructure, availability of professionals with the required expertise, mechanisms in place for quality control, skill upgradation systems, culture of communication, etc. Now let us look at few of the examples for external factors. These could be availability of raw materials, storage and transportation facilities, regulatory mechanisms, competition for market access, and customer
safety is a systemic approach to food handling and accountability to food standards. Food safety begins from the point of food handling, processing, and distributing to prevent foodborne diseases. Safe food handling practices and procedures must be implemented for the safety of food in the entire food cycle. After all, safer food means satisfied customers and better business too.
ISO 22000 is an adopted international standard to ensure food safety in the food supply chain. It sets out systematic approach towards controlling food safety hazards within a food business to assure that the food is safe to eat. An organization that beholds certification for FSMS represents trust that the concerned organization has taken appropriate measures towards food safety. FSMS can be implemented by any organization in the food supply chain, regardless of its type, size, or complexity. Farmers, producers, food industry, transport providers, restaurants, retailers, equipment manufacturers, or packaging suppliers. Any other organization directly or indirectly involved in the food chain can implement food safety management system.
Let us now proceed to examine some key features of the standard. And the first most important feature is establishing the food safety policy of the organization.
The food safety policy demonstrates organization's commitment to implement and improve food to do many things. First, select and or establish PRPs. 2. Establish, maintain and update flow diagrams for the products or product categories and the processes covered by the FSMS. 3. Confirm the accuracy of the flow diagrams, update the flow diagrams where appropriate, and retain as documented information. 4. Conduct the hazard analysis. 5. Validate that the selected control measures are capable of achieving the intended material from suppliers throughout the manufacturing process up to the end product. To put up simply, a strong traceability system allows tracing the batch of each ingredient used to manufacture a certain batch of product. This enables to avoid any inadvertent error of a wrong material being used or a wrong sequence of operation taking place. Emergency preparedness and response. The organization needs to implement a system to manage potential emergency situations and accidents that can impact food safety. Potential situations are identified and preventive and control measures are defined for each situation, such as power failure, accidents, ammonia leakage, natural calamity, fire, flooding, etc. Having a preventive corrective action in place and awareness among employees can help dampen the effect of such a situation if it takes place. Now let us discuss hazard control. The food safety team is required to carry out a hazard analysis and prepare a hazard control plan. This includes following steps. First, describes each product in detail. Second, prepares and verifies the flow charts on site. Third, conducts a hazard analysis to identify and assess hazards occurring at each process step. 4. For each significant hazard thus identified, the organization shall select appropriate control measure to reduce the hazard to acceptable limit. 5th, validate the control measures. 6th, establish a hazard control plan